we're going to move on to our first segment of the podcast, which is called basically the reading of Thorman's journal. So we're going to dive into some of the original canon of Heroscape lore, and we will be going through Thorman's journal entry number 1 tonight, and then more entries in the future, which we'll try to go one page per podcast or whatever. Well, anyway, it's gonna become a segment thing. It's just where we can learn,
we'll get to it.
Rehash through it and discover it. So that's what we're gonna do right now. Let me bring that up a second. All right, here are Thorman's journal, and I just want to say too, I really appreciate and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're more knowledgeable about games than I am. You can have a good playing game, but does it mean more when there's like a more compelling story drive in it? Like, say, the most obvious examples like Warhammer 40k. That's a huge motivating story, but you don't necessarily need it to play, but it definitely adds on to it and enhances it. Do you think so a good game and a good storyline kind of are good back to back, or is it necessarily, do you need a storyline? What doesn't have to be in depth, but do you need a storyline to make a good game?
Storyline definitely helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if players don't really care about the story, they'll just ignore it. But for the players that do care about the story, I think it does make a better experience, because it also gives you some ideas on how to play the game in different ways maybe you haven't thought of before. As long as the story and the rules of the game don't conflict, which has happened in the past, it is definitely a good thing. If they're in conflict with each other, where like the gameplay doesn't feel like the story, then that kind of, in my opinion, degrades the experience. But for the most part, a well-done story will make things better.
Right. No, and I agree. They have to match. They have to, because you have to be motivated to play. And I know as vague as some of the like story and plot points in Heroscape are, I still think it's a good drive, a good motivator. Not just to play the game, but to create your own stories, which some of us do. I'm not naming names, but some of us do that.
Yeah.
Because
because think about it. If I knew for Tic-Tac-Toe, if I knew why the X's needed to defeat the O's and why they had to be in a row, I think that game could elevate the experience. I could, every time I defeat my uncles, because they taught me how to strategize with putting where they put the X, and actually getting the X is actually easier to win. That's always been the case. So yeah, if I can figure out the story for it, what's the lore for Tic-Tac-Toe, and why toes?
Now I'm thinking, kind of like how they did a movie on Battleship. Now,
yes,
coming 2024, the next major blockbuster, Tic-Tac-Toe.
Isn't the purpose of the game to be a morality statement about nuclear war and that you can't lose?
Is it?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, there you go. There's the lore. Wow, lore behind Tic-Tac-Toe.
Who movies about games.
Oh, my mind is now blown.
Nuclear blown.
Sometimes I ask a question, I don't know where it's going to lead me, but you know what? I like it. I like it when that happens. All right, now let's move on to the journal. How about I start with let's see here. I know this is a little bit of a read. How about I go? Let's see, 1, 2, 3.
I do
4,
three
5.
paragraphs, and I could do the rest.
I'll do 3 paragraphs. That's fine. Okay. Nastralund, journal entry number 1. I am Thorman. Valhalla is my homeland, though I do not recognize the regions that I dare to visit. My people, the Kyrie, or the Kiri, I know we might say like different names over and over because some people say it one way, some people say it another way. But my people, the Kiri, lived peacefully here for thousands of years under the rule of our arch-Kyries. Then the Wellsprings were found, and everything changed. The mysterious Wellsprings. 60-some years ago, I discovered the first one quite by accident in the Tarn of Valsonga. When I drank its water, I became stronger in body and mind. My wings grew to a wondrous size. I gained mystical powers, and to my astonishment, I stopped aging. Yet, if I did not drink from the wellspring often, the powers faded. I lived quite happily in this way for a time, except for the visions. You see, along with the powers came strange visions of armies at war on bleak, unknown battlegrounds. Their images were terrifying, and I lived in fear of them, yet I still drank the water.
I was not surprised to hear that other wellsprings had been found. Other Kiri drank from them and gained powers from them and saw the visions. They became a super species. They named themselves Valkyrie, and they seized control of the wellsprings. Inevitably there became... Oh my god. Inevitably, there began a violent struggle over the precious waters. I fled before they could find me, or I was alone and did not want war. My powers soon vanished, and the visions along with them. As for the visions of the Valkyrie, they became a horrifying reality. The Valkyrie discovered that the images into those visions were of great heroes, warriors, and creatures from other worlds, other eras. They devised ways to beckon them to Valhalla and gather them into powerful armies to fight for their side. Lush valleys and hillsides became military strongholds. Majestic mountains became vantage points for deadly attacks on those below. Armies marched, fought, claimed victory, or were vanquished, all for the Wellsprings. Alas, Valhalla, my once serene homeland, has now become a war-torn and desolate ruin. They are calling this age of war the rise of the Valkyrie. I travel the land in secret, carrying little more than my journals and my heavy burden of guilt for it all. Began with me. I record all that I witness or hear about for those who will come after me, indeed, if any do. So, whew.
How inspiring.
I like of how simple that is. I think it's so much fun. I think that is such a great way to start off a game like Heroscape.
Right. Yeah, it's a good start. Introducing himself, and you notice how, how frightened this character is. You know how Thorman is. He kind of reveals it in his writings. And how
it's his fault.
He feels responsible, although. I mean, I think the deeper you dive into it, it's probably not his fault. He might. Think
he drank the water and was like, "Man, this is amazing! Hey guys, look at this!" And everyone else drinks it, and they have more fun, and then start fighting over it. And he stops, and he's like, "All right, see you," and then just leaves, and starts like, "All right, I guess I'll just write about this stuff." Yeah, it's his fault. That's why there's war going on.
Does this entry say, though, that he told the other, what would become the Valkyries, that he actually found this thing?
He kept it a secret.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
So
right?
then how did everyone else find about it then?
Well, I mean, other people
Well,
could have stumbled across it, but then why does he feel responsible if he just found something and didn't tell anybody?
Yeah,
True.
well,
Yeah, I don't know.
he says in here, I was not surprised to hear that other well springs had been found. So whether he found a wellspring or not, others would have been discovered. And I mean,
then why does he feel responsible?
and we got a little bit of a hint from the not the age of annihilation, which must not be named, that the well springs themselves. I mean, we got the idea that we don't know where those things came from or who is in control of them. Really, who
like as if like who built the Wellsprings? Because
Right.
because
why did they appear? Who made them appear?
Yeah, because like one of the questions we had talked about was if the waters themselves were natural to Valhalla, and then kind of like someone stuck a cork into the tree and made a wellspring and kind of started pouring it into it. Not exactly. I'm just using that as a metaphor, but
Right.
essentially opening up the floodgates as the better metaphor to all this power and destruction, because clearly no one can just be like, oh, this is cool, I don't need to take over the world now.
And I think another important thing is the ability of seeing visions. And
Right.
then this goes to, I mean, you could have different powers from Wellsprings, but vision seems to be one of the core things that it happens to everybody if they drink from it, basically.
Right.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
obviously
there are any
as we
exceptions to
read
this.
through these, hopefully we'll find out what some of those visions are. So to just better understand what maybe drives even Jandar, into madness with, same with Ugar and Ular and all the other Valkyrie.
Yeah. And is there anything else I wanted to talk about this? I like the term in like let's see, it's the fourth paragraph. Not just naming themselves the Valkyrie or the Valkyrie, basically describing them as a super species, like something superior to anything else. I think that's an interesting wordplay there.
Yeah. Because wordplay in the sense that they call themselves a super species, not that they are a super species.
They became a super species, and they
Well, that's
named
him
themselves.
saying that, right?
Yeah, it's him saying
The
that,
name Valkyrie is what they gave themselves, but
right.
Thorman here is describing them as a super species.
Yeah, they became a super species. They named themselves Valkyrie, and they seized control of the Wellsprings.
So, I mean, we know that they basically don't age and they're stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know if there's any actual real immortality to this? Or is it just kind of assumed?
It's immortality as long as you keep drinking from the water, but I think it's also the Wellsprings serve as a double-edged sword as well.
Because the more you drink, the more insane you go.
Yeah, it's kind of addictive.
More power driven,
basically, and
it's like a drug.
And I really think when it comes to like the end game of all this, if this story canonically is allowed to continue sometime in the future, that my guess, and people can hold me to this in the future, bring this up if we ever get to that point. But
okay, holding it down to Ryan.
Maybe
we have a little book where we write down predictions.
Every time Ryan says that, we just write it down. Hold me to it. Okay.
Maybe, just maybe, the Wellsprings, and we've talked about this before, I think, in some sense or other, but maybe, just maybe, the Wellsprings themselves are there to be. They're not there to help. They're there for the destruction of the entire universe. just because the use and the want of them I don't think they're there to benefit anybody. How could they be there to benefit anybody if all you get from them is strength and then just the wildness to destroy things? It's kind of in a sense like a ring of power, only it's liquid of power.
Yeah. You think they made like water coolers? Like, how do you drink out of the wellspring? Do they just put their lips to the water? Do they just fill up a red Solo cup?
I think there's examples of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I
a
think
giant straw.
I think that's something we'll see.
You take the water from the wellspring and hold on to it in like a refrigerator for a long time?
Do they freeze? They make ice cubes out of it?
We need a
Can it be
wellspring
frozen?
milkshake, you know.
Is it chemically inbound not to freeze?
we need to know the science. This is actually a very unique question that we never actually brought up.
Where's
before.
Mythbusters when we need them?
We need to know the actual like chemical compound of what the Wellsprings is. Is it just water with fairy dust in it, or is it really a unique water that
liquid
isn't
crack?
Water? Oh my goodness, we're getting to that now, aren't we? Okay, well we can move on now. But no, any other thoughts before we move on from this?
No, just more humor comments about the Wellsprings, actually. That's the first time I ever thought about that. And I'm like, wait a minute, how are they drinking out of this? Are they just bathing in it? The wellspring big enough? There's more questions now. There's just more questions
and we also,
than answers.
And again, why doesn't Hasbro make cups called, Wellspring water, or something like that?
Yes. See, they have Poland Spring, but they don't have Wellsprings. Like
the Hallow Wellspring,
This is how you fund the game.
Okay, we're not getting into that. No, none of that. We've buried that past behind us, and we'll probably keep on mentioning it throughout all this year. But we buried it behind us.
Why does the zombie hand keep coming out?
This is a new year.
There is a trademark for Wellspring in regards to food and dairy, so that's probably why Hasbro hasn't made Wellspring water.
Oh, okay.
This is back in 1987, so...
Oh, my God.
So wait, a couple more years. That should be almost up. I mean, they could rebuy that. You could buy that. Someone get on that.
They could find a way.
Bottled water.
There's also a trademark for Wellspring in regards to hospitals.
Oh.
Well, Whole Foods apparently has one too. They must have purchased.
Of course.
I don't know.
If all of them have that, there's a way that Hasbro
I see.
There's got to be a way.
Okay, someone got the Wellspring trademark. Whole Foods bought it, and Amazon bought Whole Foods, and that's why Amazon has it now. Got it. Okay. Anyway, sidetracked.
Yay!
Amazon.
Anyway,
that was the food trademark to the Wellspring water.
But seriously, I love these.
Interesting.
Thoughts. But we are out of time.
Half the world.
Yeah. We are out of time for this, so that has been this segment of reading from Thormun's journal, and we will do it again
we'll think of something more catchier than that, though. Something shorter.
Yeah, something catchy. This is a work in progress, people.
Just drop a comment. What are we calling our segments? We got the journal readings. We got shout outs.
And any advice will be taken in and considered. Thank you. Anyway, this has been that.
How are you drinking your Wellspring water? How are you drinking it?